Are you in the cafe?
I am in the roastery. We moved our cafe out towards into across the parking lot to a new space. Um, yeah,
Whoa.
so
Are
I'm
you
in the
sitting
roastery, but I
in
bop back and forth all day.
what was like the entrance right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So where you guys sat, that is where I am sitting. So,
Yep.
whee!
Very cool.
Wow, nice fridge.
Thanks. We had planned to use it in our new space. We bought it like years ago off Craigslist from this bar that was closing, and so I've been like literally holding on to it to use for years. And then when we were building up the new space, we couldn't make it work because of the counter height.
Oh man.
But I mean, we still need it, and it's fine. We just use it here instead. So
That's nice.
Our longest running fridge we bought for $50 off of someone that was closing. And
wow,
we've had a ton of fridge issues, like buying
shoes.
brands that aren't that nice. But our longest
We've
running
had
one.
the equivalent of with dishwashers.
God, that's tough.
The reason we bought this is because we needed a dishwasher because our other dishwasher we bought used broke, and it was like the cost to fix it was more than it was worth, and like also it was going to be like $500 just to pay someone to come
Oof.
at all because of the travel costs from Boston. And so we need a new fridge. We needed a new dishwasher. We found a dishwasher on Craigslist. They're like, but you have to take the fridge too. They're like, okay, all right.
Now you got a fridge.
And that was
now we got a
Fridge
fridge.
Woes.
No joke. Is that a 3-door? How did you move it?
So we have a trailer because we used to do pop-ups.
Ooh.
And Chris and I moved it ourselves.
Dude.
So yeah, it was great. And then so we've moved it home for a little while because we didn't have a space here. And then we had to move it back here, and Chris's dad was here to help, and we were all kind of moving in. There was a lot of yelling, and but when it was Chris and I, it was just a lot of laughter of like, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
Like, why are we trying to do this on our own? But we did it. So
Wow, isn't that kind of metaphorical for the journey of starting a business
Wow.
with a partner?
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Well, hey, let me just formally start and introduce our guest, Melissa Bartz of Little Wolf Coffee
Let's give it up. Let's give it up for Melissa.
up in Ipswich, Massachusetts. Does anyone in Massachusetts call it Massachusetts? Because my middle school teacher called it Massachusetts.
wow.
Dang.
We're gonna kind of hang out in that area most of the.
Pronunciation.
I haven't met anyone, even not living in Massachusetts, living in Florida, living in Connecticut, that's ever called it that. But I learn something new every
That's
day.
hard to hear.
Yeah, Massachusetts. Anyways, but hey, thanks for being on the program. What a delight. I guess the only background we have together is that we've always fanboyed over Little Wolf Coffee since we started.
Oh, yeah.
We kind of started along the same timeline back in 2016, and last October we made it up there and got to meet Melissa and Chris and some of the Little Wolf crew, and it was an absolute delight. It was a treat.
You might even say it's an absolute treat.
Yeah, to steal the tagline of our company, it was an absolute treat. I remember that was a big bright spot of the trip.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the realm of hospitality and coffee, was getting to hang out and talk with you and hear your story. So thanks for being on our turf virtually.
Yeah.
today.
Well, it's always interesting, like when you follow a company from afar, no matter if you're in coffee or hospitality or clothing or whatever, you like their social media, you like their branding, and then you actually like taste their coffee for the first time, and it's like, whoa, is it going to be good? Like, is their coffee as good as their branding is? And it was awesome. Like everything. Whenever the three of us, me, Riley, and Ethan, go to a coffee shop, we always have the same order. It's really cute.
Super cute.
Cute.
What do you think it is if 3 coffee guys go into a cafe? What are they ordering?
I feel like it's a joke, like 3 guys walk into a bar.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm guessing, do you guys share drinks or do you all get your own?
We get our own and we pass them around.
Okay, so there's definitely a drip coffee.
Yep.
There's definitely an espresso.
Yep.
And I'm guessing maybe a cortado.
Close.
So close.
Add 1 ounce of milk. Yeah.
Cappuccino. It was going to be cappuccino or a cortado.
Mhm.
Yep.
It probably used to be a cortado if it was 4 years ago.
Yep.
But, we've grown up. We've
As has our volume of milk,
Yeah.
I guess.
That is the same, like when Chris and I travel, we obviously will go to coffee shops like you. And he always gets an espresso and I usually get a drip, or we share a drip and I get a cappuccino. So
if the cafe has 1-in-1s, then it's like 1-in-1 drip, and then maybe like a pour over or something
little
different.
specialty item.
Yeah, but it was just really great to see how your coffee and just the quality of the drinks that you're daily serving like really held up to, like, your brand feels like your cafe. The visual elements, the social media, all of that feels like walking into, your cafe at the time. So it's really cool.
it is like a really interesting, I guess I've actually never thought about that, but there are times when you go somewhere and you are let down because it's like super cute, like location or restaurant, cafe, and like super cute packaging and a cute brand, like great social media. And then you go and you're like, this isn't great.
Right.
This is not great coffee, or like this is really bad service, or just like overall bad experience. And you're like, it is kind of I guess Slash is a dream.
Yeah, it feels very corporate. Feels like they invested all of their investor money into their marketing budget, but not anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you can have cool photo ops within a cafe, but not a well-designed cafe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
Hey, Melissa, why don't you just give us and our listeners a little idea of your background? Where are you from? Kind of how did you maybe get into the coffee industry?
Yeah. I grew up in a small town in Connecticut, and then I moved to Florida in middle school. I usually don't tell people about the Florida because not a lot of people want to be from Florida.
come on.
And about, when I was 21, Chris and I moved to Seattle for a little bit. And that's kind of where we fell in love with coffee, because we both went to college in Boston, and the coffee scene there was like very behind. And I was actually not a big coffee drinker. I drank a lot of hot chocolates and tea, big tea drinker. And so the only coffee drink I would drink is a mocha. And so a lot of expertise on coffee, clearly. And there was one specialty coffee shop that was right near where I lived in Boston. It was right next to a Starbucks. And I actually would choose between the two. And like most of the time I chose Starbucks because the service was friendlier at Starbucks. And I hated having to, I was like, well, I know the mocha there is better at this other shop. I don't know why. I don't know why it's better. I know it's like probably better coffee and chocolate, but I don't know why. But I don't like going in there because I don't like the way I'm treated, and I kind of feel like I'm not cool. And so most of the time I would just go to Starbucks because the experience was better. And I always got a small, so it wasn't really about the size of the drink or anything like that. And so then when we moved to Seattle, Chris started finding like little cafes for us to go to in the morning as kind of like a little date thing on the weekends, or he worked from home. So we would go before I went to work, or we would go after work with our husky. We would walk her around, and one of us would go pop in and get coffee. And so it just kind of became our thing of like trying on these coffee shops. And we both love wine, and it was very eye-opening of like, oh, I had no idea what coffee could be, that coffee had like all these flavors, and all that coffee just wasn't coffee. And so it really opened our eyes of like what roasting was, and where the different origins of coffee, and all sorts of things. It just a huge world of coffee that is not just like Starbucks and Dunkin'. So that was kind of like how we fell in love with coffee, and Chris got really into learning more. And we bought an espresso machine and like for home, and he was also doing pour overs and stuff. So he got really into that, and then he started roasting at home. And we, at some point, for many reasons, decided like he wanted to do something he was more passionate about. And we had talked about like a cafe or a roastery or which one do we want to do, and then we're like, let's do both. And I think what really was like the deciding factor is we had ordered wine from this couple who quit their finance jobs and moved to France to make wine, and they were hand delivering all their bottles across America, and it was their first vintage. And so they invited us to their sister's house where they were like giving us the wine, and they were just talking about like, yeah, we just wanted to do something we were passionate about, and like it was really hard, and we have to work really hard to be accepted into Burgundy. And but yeah, we make wine and we love it, and it was so inspiring to hear them just like take this big chance in life.
Cool.
And that was kind of the night we were like, yeah, let's just do this. So yeah, that was kind of the start. I obviously kind of compacted. I'm sure I missed something, but
no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Shout out to that couple that made wine.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're still doing it, and we still order from them, and they still come to the US. And yeah, it's great. Like, it's cool to see them grow, and also us grow.
Yeah. Have you experienced anyone coming to you and Chris and maybe saying the similar thing that happened with you and the wine? People get to watch you guys live and chase a dream and be like, hey, that inspired me to do this thing.
Yeah, I think we have had that conversation with people where, especially like there's been some couples that are like, oh, wow, like seeing that you do this, like I want to do this now. I think there has been like some specific situations where people are like, you really inspire me to go do my own thing, whether it was coffee or there's one that I'm like, I just can't remember what exactly it was, but it is cool because I mean, the first few years, Chris and I didn't have any employees, so we were here 6 days a week doing everything all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So we were roasting, bagging, barista, literally everything, and we still are here all the time. Chris still does all the roasting. I still bag and barista and run a company, and like, so we're here a lot. So I think that a lot of our customers know us and know our faces and a lot of them are our own friends now. So I do think that there's a lot of accessibility of seeing that, and people being like, oh wow, like look, they're doing that and they're still here, and like I can do that too.
Mm-hmm. What took you guys from Seattle to Ipswich? Was that like the move was to start this?
So we had moved back to Boston, and I was in finance, and it was kind of like we knew we were going to do this thing, and Chris was like, you can choose wherever we move from Boston. And I really love Seattle. We both really love the Pacific Northwest, and it's really beautiful. But I had some fears about, like we both did, about opening a coffee business where there's such an established scene. So that was really nerve-wracking, and it just seemed like very risky of like trying to find our footing when everything is so established and kind of having to know what you're doing on day one. And I also wasn't sure if I was going to go into the coffee business with Chris, like whether financially it made sense, whether that was what I wanted to do. And so I wanted to stay in an area where there was still a lot of career options for like financy stuff. And not just like, oh, there's like one corporate office. I didn't want to do corporate finance. So that was definitely a big factor of it. And just also all of our families on the East Coast. So there was a lot of like, okay, I guess we'll just stay in Boston. And when we were looking, we wanted to be outside of Boston so that it wasn't like we're in a city and day one, we have to like know what we're doing and like hit the ground running. And so when we were looking for spaces, we came across Ipswich because our landlord or our real estate agent that we'd worked with for a long time lived up here. And he was like, let me just show you around. And we kind of came by this by chance. It was like we were driving past it, actually the space next to it, and we're like, oh, is that available? And we looked at it, and they're like, well, we also have this garage space. Like, you're already here. Why don't you look at it? And we were like, oh, wow, this is it. So it was a space, and then also, like, I grew up in a small town, and where I lived, there was no chains. Like, you couldn't have any fast food restaurants. Oh. And so, like, really small. There's also where I grew up, a lot of history. Like, the redcoats went through it, and a lot of old houses. And that was really special. Like, I didn't go to Toys R Us. I always went to, like, the toy store downtown. And so that was a really special way to grow up. And I think it really fosters small business. So I think that was really important to me too when we were looking. And Ipswich is kind of very similar in that I think it's the largest number of old houses in the country from like 1600s, 1700s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no drive-throughs here allowed. There is one Dunkin' that kind of snuck in somehow, but like otherwise there's not like an Olive Garden or anything like that.
I remember driving past that Dunkin', like it still looked like it was an Ipswich Dunkin' though. It's like a white, I think it was like a white kind of like housey residential kind of look to it. But I remember you saying that there's like no drive-throughs allowed. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I think like that kind of community and like rules and everything really does foster like small businesses and people wanting to go to small business.
Right on. Well, hey, so you guys decided to get your company started. Is it true? You said that you guys started as a mobile operation, right? Like on a cart? Or was that just like kind of at the same time?
We had the roastery, we had the cafe, and then we also were doing mobile events.
I see.
Dang, the three-headed dragon.
Really wanted to do it all as two people.
Wow. That's awesome. We have a lot of listeners who found us because we started as a mobile operation and are wanting to do things that way as well. How did that go for you guys? If you're being honest.
Yeah, I think the thing that people don't want to hear is that it is hard. Like the mobile setup is a pain, and we really had the luxury that we had invested in a really good mobile cart. So it wasn't that the setup was like bad and it was like a water issue or anything like that, but it is, it's incredibly heavy, but also the fact that we are a cafe. Every time we did an event, you were breaking down a complete cafe, putting it into a trailer, setting it up somewhere. And then at the end of the night, we have to come back and do the same thing of like putting together the cafe again. And our bar was the mobile cart.
You're triggering us over here.
We're triggered.
We're triggered.
So you have to come back and redo it all. And it takes hours, and it was so exhausting. And there's so many levels of complication on this. And I know we're not the only ones that have had power issues of like, we would get there and there wouldn't be power, or the power wasn't strong enough. So it kept flicking off and we couldn't use a grinder.
Stop it, Melissa. Oh,
I'm twitching right now.
That's, oh my gosh.
But yeah, I remember looking at your pictures of your cart when we were building ours, and it was a pretty big point of inspiration for us. And yeah, I definitely see how a big drawback would be having to break down your entire bar. But I think there was a picture of is it a barista capsule? Is that what it
is?
Was? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So I would see that picture in the space, and I'd be like, this is great. This is genius.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's good to hear the other side of it, that it made it a little bit challenging.
Yeah, it was definitely very challenging, and financially, there was literally one event every year that was worth it for us. Like every other event was like $50, $100, like just really not financially worth it of being there and the amount of time it took to get there. And we weren't paying someone because it was just us doing it, but it just really, after I think 3 years, we stopped doing them because it just was not worth the costs, and also like the breaking down. And if they wanted it to be Saturday, I mean, we had to close our cafe on a Saturday, which was our busiest day. So it was like, well, you have to guarantee I'm going to make more than my cafe would being open.
Yeah, we saw that a lot when we were just when our entire operation was on our cart when we were in a pop-up format. Then there's also like the intangible side of your guests coming to your cafe and there being like a sign on the door that's just like, sorry, we're closed. And then they're like,
they trust you less.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's big.
100%, because like then it's like, well, do you not have normal hours? And like, well, it was one Saturday, but people just don't understand. And there was the positive aspect of some people see us out and then be like, oh, I didn't know you had a cafe, I'll come visit. But I mean, we would get a couple people and like, yeah, you have more awareness about like your brand and what you're doing. But I think it's very few people who came to us because they saw us at an event. And I also think a lot of the events that are up here, there's a local brewery that does them all too. So you're competing with food, like delicious grilled cheeses and pizza and beer. And they're mostly in the afternoon. And it's really, I think it's just coffee's hard to compete with that.
You're speaking our language. We learned the same thing. Like anytime we would get booked for a wedding, we would always ask like, what's the booze situation? Like, is there going to be a bar? And if there was a bar at the wedding, we knew that we were going to be making maybe 25% of the drinks that we usually would. And then if there wasn't booze at the wedding, we would have like a line the whole time. So
we'd be the entertainment.
Yeah.
And we would.
That's interesting.
So with all this, when do you feel like you made the transition from like, this is a dream, it's a startup, we're busting it, we'll see if we make it, to like maybe this certain moment where you kind of looked around and you're like, I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. Like this is a sustainable, like career building company. I know you probably have days of both, and I know we do too.
Yeah, like last week. That's when I probably decided that. I don't know. I mean, it was probably a few years in. Probably after hiring someone, maybe like 3 or 4 years in, I think, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way of roasting. There's so many expenses with roasting and the cash flow issues that come with it, that it's not just the cafe situation. So we had the benefit of sharing one rent for both our roastery and our cafe, which is fantastic. And it kind of makes it so like, one picks up the slack when the other one isn't doing well. But I think it probably took, probably 3-4 years before it was like, okay, we can probably both keep doing this sustainably and like our company will keep growing. And it wasn't ever like we were going to give up, like, oh, this isn't, but it was always like, we'll just keep growing, that it's actually sustainable for our future.
Yep.
Yeah, you said something interesting with like, there's two different trains of thought. It's like, are we going to make it or are we going to give up? Because we had the same thing of like, we may not make it for a while, but we're never going to give up. We're like, we're just going to keep doing this until it works. I guess it sounds like you had a similar idea of like, we started it and we're going to finish it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like I worked for the first 8 months that Chris was here every day doing everything by himself. So like financially that helped, of like me having my own job. But yeah, I don't think it was never to the point that it was like, oh yeah, like we have to shut. And I think because we were like, yeah, we're just going to, this is really hard and we're just going to keep doing it. But I don't think everyone would have made the same decision. And I think, I'm sure you've had the same experience where you understand after doing it of like why so many hospitality businesses closed in the first 5 years, of like the costs and everything of it just not being worth it.
So just to keep the storyline going, you guys were in that kind of garagey space. You had the cafe with your barista capsule, and then you had the roastery right there. How and now you're in this new cafe with the roastery. Break down just that timeline for me.
Yeah, so everything was in the one space. The cafe and the roastery were sharing a space until about a month ago. So we just moved our cafe out a month ago. which we really needed the space for a cafe. We lost like so much seating due to green coffee storage, if you will. And COVID, like that COVID was really the start of like losing all the seating space. But we also just need so much more room in our roastery to be able to like bag and all of that. So we were trying to do that probably for 3 or 4 years, and finding the right space to either move the roastery or move the cafe was really challenging. So it took a long time, but we're here. So probably a month ago, we moved our cafe out.
And you're literally just across the parking lot?
Yeah.
Like after all that looking, you're just right there?
Yeah.
Wow.
The person who had the lease was supposed to be an aquarium store, and they never opened, and they're like 4-year lease. So shocked,
Whoa.
he decided to end it. And
That's wild.
Wow.
And so we were like, yes, we will definitely look at that, and please us. So yeah, that was like a really great, convenient timing and option.
Well, could you give us some specs on the space, square footage, seats, bar layout?
So I think it's a little over 1,000 square feet. I don't know why I'm totally forgetting at this point. It's been a very long build out process. So my brain's just declined a little bit. So yeah, it's about 1,000 square feet, and it's roughly 40 seats.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's a lot of windows. There's not a ton of wall space, but there's a really big bar, which was so great, especially after coming from Barista Capsule. We have so much behind bar space and so much room to move around. So that's great. We have a really big bar that has seating, and then we do have benches along the walls, and then one big table and a bar against the windows.
That's cool.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. That's cool that you were able to have such a big bar and fit 40 seats, like in 1,000 foot. That's a really wise and efficient design layout.
Yeah, it was the whole designing of it was very challenging, of like, what do we want, what makes sense. But yeah, we weren't going to have that many seats at the bar, and we had to add an additional bathroom, and that kind of changed things. And then we were able to actually add more seats again, which was great. Yeah, so it's been nice to have so many seats because so many people want to hang out and do work.
Yep.
What is one of your favorite aspects of the space? What makes you happy when you walk in?
So everything is blue. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, but it is just a blue dream. And I always wear blue. So I say that it's my Cinderella castle.
Wow.
So I'm just like little Cinderella in her blue castle. So I love that everything's blue. Everyone has also commented that it just feels like a really happy space.
Nice.
They're always like, I just feel so happy coming in here. So I think that is really great to hear that other people feel that it's just like, it makes them happy. It's really playful. That has always been important to us, and is still important that it feels playful. So yeah, I think there's not just one thing. Like, we have really fun lights, and I think there's just a lot of like little fun touches in it. But yeah, I don't know. I did get a pink bathroom, which was like my one demand.
Sick.
Nice.
If everything was up to me, everything would be pink. So I got my pink bathroom. So that is a big highlight.
That's
nice.
Awesome. By the way, when we were at Little Wolf, I copped one of those toddler tees that you guys have. The ones with the, the dog riding the motorcycle thing.
Yes.
And my 2-year-old loves that shirt. She calls it her Ruffy shirt because there's a dog. So
I love it. One of our employees actually bought it for herself, the toddler shirt, and has been wearing it as like a baby theme. And I noticed the other week that she had it under overalls. So I was like, is that our toddler shirt? She's like, yeah. And I was like, I love that. That is amazing.
Wow. Amazing.
So I'm really jealous, and I kind of think it's silly that we haven't made it into an adult shirt. So that's kind of my goal now, is to make an adult shirt with it, because I want
the 2022
I want
goal.
little
So in this cafe, I guess just company wide, how many employees? How big is your team now? It's always such a hard question.
You can,
Yeah,
you can say approximately.
Clearly, I'm like, how many people are there?
A range of 3 people.
Beginning next month, I think there will be 8.
8.
Yeah, we've kind of gone in a big transition of employees, and especially moving spaces. We needed more baristas because we're just more busy in that cafe. And we also have the space to have more people working at bar at once. So we've been hiring the last few months. Which obviously everyone's having hiring issues, but we definitely, like, as we have grown, need more people, and probably will continue to need more people. But still a small team.
What's the demographic like in Ipswich? And I guess the follow-up question would be, does that inform how you guys operate in any way?
That's interesting. Yeah, I would say it's mixed. There's a lot of people who've been here their whole lives, and they are very sensitive about the town and not wanting to change. A lot of people's families have been here since like the 1700s, like they are townies, as they're called. And so they are not usually welcome to change. And then there's also the people that moved up here from Boston or Cambridge after like wanting to start a family and get out of the city. So it's really mixed between like people who have settled the town and people who have just moved up here that are like younger professionals. Yeah, so it's definitely very mixed between that. And I guess it definitely has dictated like how we run our business, and that we always wanted to be really welcoming and open. But I think especially being in a small town where when we first opened, there was no specialty coffee like anywhere around us. And it's still pretty deserted up here. But like nobody knew what specialty coffee was. So when people came in, you really did have to be welcoming for them to want to try it, for them to want to like be open to something new that isn't Dunkin' or isn't Starbucks or what they're familiar with. So that was a huge aspect of who we were and who we are, is like making sure people feel welcome in the space, and that they're not like I felt in Boston, like that they're just not cool enough or whatever. So that's definitely affected us. And also just having drinks available that people are familiar with. Like we make all of our own syrups, but we do make a caramel, we do make a vanilla and a chocolate and seasonal syrups. And I mean, they're not Monin because we make them. So I think it's like having what we want to do on like a better level, but still being things that people are familiar with and want.
Right.
I think that's also really important. And I don't think we are in like a demographic like New York City or Los Angeles or even maybe Seattle, where we can do really crazy drinks that are really interesting and crazy and creative, because I just don't think there's necessarily a market for those drinks. And also like no one's going to pay $10 for a coffee drink here.
Yeah. Yep. I have a direction we can go, but we can stay on the cafe if you guys have pressing.
What are you guys? Do you guys do you feel like your community kind of dictates your business?
Oh yeah, for sure. We never saw ourselves opening a cafe in Alpharetta by any means. We always thought that we would have one. For our listeners who aren't familiar, Atlanta has a perimeter highway called 285, and everything that's ITP in the perimeter has traditionally been cooler than the things OTP outside of the perimeter.
Yes.
So we always expected to have a cafe ITP.
Because we grew up OTP and we wanted to be cool.
Yes.
Yes.
But the opportunity just kind of arose, and we landed in Alpharetta, and we were like, we're going to have to, have some bang-in syrups and no sort of you have to drink cappuccino or
have like a super crazy single origin drip or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, even when we first landed in Alpharetta as a pop-up, we only had 12 ounce. 12 ounce was our largest size.
Yep.
And it was a big...
We still don't do a large latte.
Yeah. So here, we kind of had to make that pivot because I don't really know where we would be if we still if we only had 12 ounces. It's awesome that you guys can do that because I totally love that. But we eventually just, 3-shot, 16-ounce latte. I kind of think back to when people would come in and get upset with us. I'm like, have they ever been back? Do they know that we changed that?
Maybe.
But
I think it's like one of those things you have to like weigh the pros and cons of doing it. Like, are there enough people complaining about it, or
Totally.
like that it's going to make or break your business, and like how important is it to you? Like we have a 10-ounce latte, and that is our biggest latte cup. And we've really stayed true to that. And there's been a few people who ever want a bigger one. We say like, bring your own cup in and we'll put it in there. And if you want an extra shot, that's fine. Like we're happy to make modifications for people. And I think it is like one of those things where we added a large coffee drip like 2 years in. We're like, oh, people want a 16-ounce coffee. But yeah, all those little things that you kind of have to realize, like, oh, this is what people want, and it really is not changing the core values of our business.
Yeah, that's awesome that you guys have been able to do that. Mad respect.
Yeah, we run into that all the time, especially the years that you go on. It's like, I think from the get-go, we've only had 2 alternative milks, like oat and almond. It's just some people are like, do you have coconut? Do you have soy?
Yeah.
Every day. And we're just like, no. And
Or Splenda, the Splenda thing.
yeah, we've never done Splenda. People also ask for sugar-free syrups every day, and we haven't made that switch either. And I'm trying to think what else we don't. We started bringing.
We do have Splenda, so we are at a loss if that's where we.
We have one cool point on you.
Wow.
We are SCA approved now. And one thing though that I had to put the brakes on was. And it's just weird that we have the control over this as like a business, but we started getting some heavy cream in for all the keto heads who wanted heavy cream, but people really kept asking for heavy cream lattes, like 16 ounce, 12 ounce. And I was just like,
we're going to kill you.
I, in good faith and like good conscience cannot. We have to refuse. And it would be like $10 because we've got like the little organic cartons that are like $6.
Heavy
a
cream's
pop.
expensive.
Oh yeah. And it's concentrated. But that's the world we live in. There's the push and pull of like what affects your brand, what defines your brand. And sometimes we bend and sometimes we get the bigger cup and sometimes we gotta be like, nah.
We don't have heavy cream, we have half and half.
So,
but we've had like, but it's like 5 people a year probably who ask for a breve, like a half and half latte. And it's always like, that's a lot. And they're like, yeah, at Starbucks, I get like the biggest I can with heavy cream. And I'm like, wow, that is heavy.
That's very heavy.
Oh yeah.
It's like literally a heavier cup.
Yeah.
That's some weight to it.
Changing gears a little bit. One of the things I'm intrigued about your company ever since I've come in contact with you online is this thing that we talk about over the years within Valor of the difference between our local brand and our global brand. And, local brand meaning literally geographically, Alpharetta, Roswell, Atlanta, like that kind of just North Georgia area. People that come into our cafe, in future cafes that we have, like they're regulars, that's our local brand. Like how those local people perceive our brand is like one category. And then global brand is more so on the roasting side where it's like, a multi-roaster in Colorado buys our coffee, not because they've been to our cafe, which sometimes that's the case. Like maybe they were traveling and they came into our cafe and, they loved the coffee. And so they went back to Colorado and wanted to buy our coffee. But there's also a lot of people, and I'm sure you've had this too, where like some people in London, like who had never been to our cafe or whatever, they just liked our global brand. They liked the visual aspects of it. They liked the mission of our company and like what we're about, just the, something Maybe it was as simple as they liked our packaging, whatever it was, but they identified with our global brand. And I feel like for you guys, like your global brand is so enticing and so just pleasing to engage with. And I'm interested to hear, like, is that something you think about? Because like when I go on your Instagram, it's not just a bunch of pictures of your cafe getting local people to come into your cafe. That is part of it, but you're also kind of like more towards that global approach. So is that something you think about, or are you just kind of naturally good at it?
That's interesting. I think Chris and I have a lot of conversations about all sorts of things that kind of like touch on both. He does run the Instagram. I don't actually ever go on social media. I'm not a fan. So I think he does, and Chris does all of the social media, and I think he actually does a really good job of like balancing that. And I don't know how much of that is like I think there is a conscious level of like getting people to come to the cafe, and also, like you said, recognizing that we are a bigger brand than just our cafe.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I've never actually thought to ask him that. I think when we're making decisions about coffee buying or other decisions, I think that does come into play of like, or even raising prices of like, I'm sure you've had to as well. Like our green coffee costs have increased like 30% in the last year. And like we have to raise prices because of the coffee we're buying year over year. It's just more expensive because of many things. And so there's the aspect of like, how are we now comparing to other coffee roasters in terms of price of people buying online? How are we in line with like for wholesale of like other coffee roasters? That are people going to feel like we're now so out of touch? And if so, like how are those other coffee roasters not having to raise prices due to their costs? And then also the impact of like, okay, well, we're in a small town and we are the only specialty coffee, and people don't usually pay $20 a bag for coffee. So like how is that perceived? So I think decisions like that there's a lot of like, it touches all those different points. I don't remember when this came up, but I don't think about like, I guess my day to day is so much of like, especially if I'm over the cafe, it's like I see my regulars and I talk to like the older woman who we talk about recipes and like how her husband's being annoying at home, how she needs to escape from him. And like, there's so much of that. My day to day is like connecting with like the people that come every day or that come weekly or whose kids have like been coming in since they were little. And it's like, oh, they're going to kindergarten. We're so excited. So it is kind of funny sometimes to remove myself from the situation and be like, oh yeah, there's so much more than that for us as well. It's not just like that. But we don't have as much communication with the people who buy online. And but yeah, there's decisions in terms of decision making, yes. But that's a really interesting question. I think it's makes you think a lot about like what you're doing and how you're putting yourself out there as a brand and making it appeasable to all sorts of people.
Another quick question. Do you have a fly harassing you?
Yes. I keep trying to kill it. I don't know if you see me, but I'm like,
oh no, we've got the fly captured on video as well. We see it all happening, and I just want to say I'm sorry that you're having to deal with that.
Fly cam.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do.
So I'm glad you've noticed. I'm like, oh, I'm sure they haven't noticed that I'm like swatting my foot at something.
No, we just we feel for you.
Dang it.
You got to do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, to speak into that a little more, I mean, you guys really just have such a national reach with your roasting program. And I'm interested to see, is there anything that you can attribute that to? Being, to give us as small town roasters and other small town roasters out there, is there like a moment that you recall where it was just like, oh, like, we've got lots of cool people buying our coffee? I I'm interested to hear kind of if there was like a moment or just kind of a lot of work that played into that. I mean, obviously, but
I mean, I just show up to work like once a week and like,
yeah,
you know,
it just
everything.
happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
Me too. I get it.
Sorry, he keeps. I'm like, he's so close, and then I think I got him.
That's gonna be the title of this podcast.
so I
Melissa kills fly on air.
On air.
Yeah.
Makes national news. Animal abuse.
Animal
Yeah.
abuse.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Yikes. Yeah, that's all right.
So I think like when we created our brand, and Little Wolf is based off our dog, so it's our husky River. And so when we were doing it, it was just like something that's playful and like meant something to us because we would always walk around Boston and people would say like, oh, it's a little wolf because she's gray and white and scared of everything. People like, oh my God, it's a wolf on a leash. I'm like, she's literally just like a giant baby. So that's kind of how it started. And I think there was never like when we were branding, we wanted to be that like we are on the shelf. Like people want to work with us and wholesale with us because our packaging is appealing and we're on the shelf with other coffee that, you know, is professional looking. So when we were branding, it was definitely important that the packaging looked nice and like also was stayed true to like who we were and what we wanted our business to be, which was like playful and fun, but not too serious. And I mean, there's drawings of our dog again on the bag. So it's clearly not too serious. So it was never like, oh, we want to be so big. And like, that is the goal of what our brand and our image is. So I don't think it was ever like, this is our conscious decision. This, how are we going to get there? What do we have to do? And I think it was really like, I don't know if you had this issue, but starting off, I would reach out to so many coffee shops and be like, hey, we would love to work with you. Like we visited, whatever. Can I send you samples? And so many of them would never respond or would send samples and it would just like go into darkness and no one would ever talk to you. And I think it's what really, I think we had like one wholesale account in New York, Troy, New York, carry us. And I think once like people saw us at places, they were like, oh, that's cool. Like this coffee is good. And I think it got like started to trickle down of like other coffee shops more interested in like talking to us. And I think that's the biggest validation point is like people seeing your coffee somewhere else. I think that's really where it started to happen. And I think for us, it's always been about being friendly and like being really responsive and helpful. And also Chris and I both are kind of, I feel like pretty grounded of like, we don't think what we're doing is like the best thing or like earth shattering or we're doing it better than everyone else. Like we're all roasting coffee. We're all doing a pretty similar thing. None of us are really doing it better than each other. We're maybe doing it a little bit different. We're choosing different green coffee or whatever, but it's not like what we're doing is better than you or better than anyone. So we've kind of always been pretty grounded of like, you know, we would love to work with you, but we're not like the best of anything. So yeah, I think just being really open and kind to people and like wholesale has kind of helped us grow. But there's probably, I think when we started to have accounts in LA, that was probably where it was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, this is cool.
Totally. Can you rank your wholesale partners for us on air?
Sounds really smart.
Yes.
Favorite to
Yes,
least
I
favorite.
would love to.
Good.
The ones that send us Christmas gifts, which I don't think is anyone.
Yet.
Whoa.
This is a shout out. If you work with Little Wolf, they need Christmas presents.
Yes. Particularly our dogs.
Yes.
Our dog Felix goes through a lot of toys, so he would like some new squeaky toys. That's the biggest request.
Noted.
I think our brand, packaging company, the people who make our bags, always send us a Christmas gift.
Oh.
And
Is it Savor
exciting.
Brands, perchance?
What?
Is it Savor Brands?
It is.
The cookies?
Shit. Do they send you a gift too?
Yeah,
The
sorry.
Hawaiian cookies?
It's not
Is
just
that what we're
you,
talking
sorry.
about?
Damn. Yeah. So it used to be chocolate covered macadamia nuts.
Yep.
Did you ever get those?
No, we might have been a year late to that one.
Oh, so there were these whales that were chocolate covered macadamia, and those were legit. And then they sent us the cookies, and I was like, "Hey, thanks for the cookies, but like
next year,
what about the nuts next time?" Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm hearing just throughout several things that you've said, I'm hearing this theme of like this balance. I'm all about the duality and the balance today, guys.
Yeah.
Wow, Ross.
Nice.
It's really like profound stuff. I don't know. Just like, you want to be true to yourself, but you also want to be empathetic to the market. And it's like kind of something we talked about on our last show with one of our importers, Unblended. I don't know if you've heard of Unblended.
I haven't. But that's cool. I'll tell. I don't buy any green coffee anymore, so I'm pretty out of touch with anything cool. So.
Well,
hey, come on.
Well, anyways, he was talking about this thing of like everything we do has to be validated by the market. Like it doesn't matter how good the idea is to us. It doesn't matter like how, cool we think something is. Like ultimately it has to be validated by people wanting to buy it. And of course there's some just intangible things of like, what if we have a cool drawing in the corner of our bag? It's like, we can't quantify if that really matters or whatever. But I just hear this theme with you of like, everything you do, you want it to be genuine to you. And that's what makes Little Wolf. But you're also like, we do want the packaging to look great so that we get on the shelves. It's like, I just think that's such a important and wise line to walk with like different business decisions. So that's cool that you guys think that way. Maybe.
Yeah, I think some of it's like subconscious, and there's obviously like a conscious level. I do think for me, getting off of social media was huge. Like Chris can go on social media and like see other businesses and be like, "That's really cool that they're doing that, but that's not our business." Like, we don't need to be making this like crazy drink, or like we don't need to do this with our packaging or have a 12-ounce bag or whatever. Like that's really cool they do it, but it's not us. And I had a problem with being like, oh, all these other businesses are doing XYZ and like we're not cool enough. Like we need to be trying to do everything in order for people to like us, and like we're not doing enough, or we're not and so for me it was like the comparison of like, well, is that cool and we're not doing it? And Chris has like I think he has a really good sense of like that is not our core business. Like we do not need to do that, or like this is not us. And after thinking about it, be like, oh yeah, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but I think I got too stuck in like worry that everyone else was doing something we weren't or whatever.
That is so good. Like just the paralysis of comparison on social media. Like when I can remember so many different times. I think specifically like similar to you, we went through a season of like, hey, we're roasting now. We got some pretty cool packaging. Like let's travel everywhere and send everyone samples, and like that's going to be our jobs now. And it didn't really yield much. Similar to you, a lot of the success we've had in wholesale has just been people already connecting with our brand and reaching out to us. And so I remember like in that season of us kind of doing a lot with samples, and who knows how much coffee we sent out and what the dollar amount is, quantified to that. But I remember just like comparing our brand to other, like let's say we really wanted to land this, exclusive account in LA, like whatever the coolest thing is. It's like we see the other coffees on their shelf and it's like, man, are we as cool as them? And it's like, that does matter in some degree because it's like technically competition, although we don't really think about competition that much. But it's like actually the best way for us to find the right customers is for us to like be rooted in who we are and like put out things that are original. They don't even have to be original. I mean, they're just like, they're us. And the more we can be sure of who Valor is, the more potent and like focused our brand will be. And then the people that really connect with our brand will like really connect with our brand, as opposed to just like open-handed.
We're doing it all.
We're doing everything. Do you want something? We have it. Someone else, do you want something?
Tie-dye? Do you want solid color? You want stripes? We got all the packaging.
Got everything. Yeah, and that's just exhausting, and it's actually not helpful. So I definitely see that in your brand a lot.
I think for me, like Chris has a good sense of that core, but I think for me, getting off of social media got rid of the distractions for me of like having other ideas of what our brand is, and it became more of like, oh, this is what I want us to be, or this is what our brand is, because it's like what I think it is and what I know, and not because I'm seeing what other people are doing and being influenced by that. So I think that was, like you said, I think it makes you a stronger brand. And for me, I just kind of have to do that on my own.
For sure.
And I also think there's like very different directions for roasteries to go. I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel like there's some that kind of stay true to like what they want to be doing, and then some that kind of take the route of growth and buy like maybe more milder, sweeter coffee that is a little bit lower price point. They can sell to bakeries and like have a higher volume. Then there's ones that kind of do the different direction of also like going into grocery stores. And so I think there's also that aspect too of like what you want your brand to be.
What are you most excited about for Little Wolf right now? Like when you get to work, what makes you excited to work on?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think we're like, the last month has been a lot of growth of moving the cafe out. And so the growth of also like, I have now this space for myself, and what will my office look like of now actually having a space that is not the world's tiniest desk in the middle of a roastery and cafe.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Are you on bar ever, like on the schedule?
The last month and a half I have been, but regularly, like a year ago, Chris and I took ourselves off of it, and then I had to go back on because we were short staff, and now I'm getting myself back off.
Nice. Yeah, that's a big transition, because it sounded like, especially in the beginning, you were doing just about everything, but now you're starting to specialize what you do. Could you speak to kind of that role split between you and Chris of what you specialize in and enjoy doing and working on, and what Chris does?
Yeah, so I talk to people all day. He does the work. Just kidding. I definitely am more. So he does all the roasting and green coffee buying, and so that's definitely his role, is really like all things green coffee and the direction of like our menu. And I'm all things kind of back end and finance and bookkeeping and financial strategy of like keeping things paid. And then the cafe, we definitely converge on like what is important for us for drinks and that kind of stuff. And we both designed it. I think Chris probably had a little bit more. He found a little bit more things and had like a little bit more input because of just time wise. But cafe, we kind of split and share. But in terms of like people management, that's more on me of like managing our baristas and schedules and all that kind of stuff.
It kind of sounds like you guys both just do what Riley does for us. And we're just sitting pretty over here.
Yeah, we just do the podcast.
Yeah, we do the podcast.
Yeah.
And Riley does all the work on the podcast.
That seems fair. I think it should just be one person doing everything.
Right. Yeah. Business 101.
Yes.
Well, you guys don't know that I have a virtual assistant in somewhere that helps me. I don't even know their name. I just pay him.
Dang. Melissa, what is your favorite thing about being a boss?
Flexibility. Like flexibility with schedule and what I have to do each day and when I do it. And I get to spend time with our dogs in the morning. Like Chris gets in at like 5:30, 5:45, and I don't. So I get up with our dogs and I get to hang out with them for a couple hours. And So I think that's a big benefit. And also a few years ago decided I really needed to do something like for myself every day, and I started exercising more regularly, and I have the flexibility to like leave early at like 4 to go exercise if that's what I want to do, and I just have to get my work done when I get my work done. So I think that's a huge plus.
What is one of the hardest things in this season about being a boss?
Everything. I think it's balancing what you're managing. And also, I think people management is very hard of making sure. I want to make sure everyone feels happy. And I think that that's really heavy to like try to ensure the happiness of all the people around you, which is definitely a me issue. But I think it's that. And also just when things go wrong at the end of the day, it's like you are the ones having to fix it. Like, if someone doesn't come in or something breaks or something floods, like you are the person who's on the line to fix it. Or if your bank account needs money, like you are the one who has to figure it out. Like all these kind of problems are your problems at the end of the day. It's not like you just leave work and you're like, bye, see you tomorrow. Like all those kind of things are there forever for you.
No doubt. Do you guys, I was one of the questions we wanted to ask you is like, where do you see Little Wolf in 3 years? But I guess before that, like, do you even think that way? Like, are you kind of like goal visionary people, or are you just more like, hey, let's take it as it comes?
So in 3 years, I see Little Wolf taking over the world.
Wow. Okay.
Quite literally. I had to take
we
the
surrender.
What does that mean for us?
I mean, what does it mean for everyone? Little Wolf is like, everyone just has to wear wolf suits all the time. Is really kind of what I envision.
Dang.
Our Ruffy shirts.
Shirts.
Our Ruffy shirt. And everything has to be blue.
Sounds like a weird indie film. Like,
it does.
What was that one when that guy, he turns into what does he turn into at the end of the movie? Gosh, this is flopping. All right. Anyways,
do you remember what the guy turns into at the end of the movie?
If you remember, make sure to comment.
My wife would know.
Smash like if you know what the guy turns into at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Shrek?
No.
Are you talking about Shrek? Is that
no? I think he's
green.
He's a telemarketer, and he's making calls all the time. Very recent movie
with Lakeith Stanfield. I
don't know anyone.
The guy from Atlanta.
Yeah. Thank you for what?
Yes.
Or like, sorry to bother you or something like that. He turns into something?
Yeah. He has a really stressful job, I think. He's making like telemarketer calls the whole movie. And then eventually... Sorry to bother you. Okay, we're getting somewhere. He turns into like an animal, like a horse. He turns into a horse. Literally.
Great.
So I'm really
similar
glad.
to my vision, except everyone turns into a husky.
Right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, husky related question. Because you are an alumni of Northeastern University, which is the Huskies, obviously.
Yeah.
Did that propel you to get a husky?
No.
Okay.
Your college pride is just...
Are you
being
sure?
Yeah, not actually really associated at all. Also, not really a sports person. Like I went to a few hockey games, but I purposely never brought her to campus, which I had her in college. But I really wanted to keep my huskiness all to myself. Like,
sure.
I don't know.
Well, thanks for your vulnerability there.
So funny enough, no, just
I feel like where you live is a very appropriate place to have a husky, but we see people with huskies in Georgia, and I'm always like, why?
Why do you hate your dog so much?
Why would you do that? Can you speak to that? Is that a legit concern that I should be having, or is it like, oh, they're fine?
So River lived in Florida for a little bit, and they do self-regulate like their hair and like shedding when they need to, and she also like in the summer will like go out and sit in the sun and just be like bask in it, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna die. You have to come inside. Like this is not an option for you. I mean, I don't think it's the best choice because like even in the summer, I don't really walk her up here unless it's like really early in the morning before it's gotten hot, because A, she's gotten old, and B, it's just too hot. Like she's So I don't think it's the best choice, but if they love them and they're taking care of them, I guess it's not my place.
Wow.
Sure.
Yes, Ethan.
Yeah. Hey,
So-
I haven't told anyone that they shouldn't.
I mean,
have a husky.
I don't want a bunch of death threats from husky lovers in
Yeah.
Georgia.
We got a death threat for acting like Riley's dog was drinking a coffee that one time. Remember?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Did you ever? Yeah. Have you ever used River like in your product work, and then someone's like, "You're killing your dog."
No, because we've tried, and she hates the smell of coffee.
She won't even get near it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would try to get pictures with her, and she'd be like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope," and just like back out. And so it's not for lack of trying; it's because she is a useless model.
Oh.
I know. Like, what do we pay her for? Like, why are you around?
Right.
Well, she should be getting paid for being the mascot of your company. No offense.
I know. She
Free
should
room
get
and board.
something.
Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
Yeah, so there is the best restaurant in Atlanta. It's called Little Bear, and the owner named it after his Pyrenees that people said.
Oh, looks
like a bear.
Looks like a little.
Yeah.
That's cute.
So that's pretty close, but it's definitely they definitely put out some amazing food. So
I'll have to add it to the list when we ever go to Atlanta. I think our next restaurant or our next cafe has to be called Little Squirrel because our second husky is a small husky.
Ah, perfect.
And he is pretty much just a squirrel, like an oversized squirrel. He like eats acorns and like climbs on tables and.
Dang.
Well, hey, do you have any coffees from other roasters that you've tried lately that you just love and want to shout out? And if you don't, then that's fine too.
I think there was also a question I didn't answer. I think I went into something about dogs, by the way.
It was about your plan to take over the world with this really odd
Yeah, so
plot
let's do that question first.
Very sick.
Okay. Yeah, I think at some point we had talked like we used to when we first opened, like had that like mindset of like, where are we 3 years from now? What is our goal? How many cafes do we want? And I think, especially like after COVID and like COVID was such a veer of like, and now we're going this way. I think that really changed that mindset of like, we need to be planning 3 years from now because I think you just can't plan and it's much more of like what we want to achieve this year. And so we don't, I think, and like what feels right, like if another cafe feels like the right time or is the right space, like we would do it, but it's not like, oh, we have to open another cafe in the next 3 years. So much more living in the moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, again, one of the other strengths that I've noticed is just that you guys are people of the community. Like, people know you. You're on the front lines making the product. Like, you're talking to the ladies about their husbands in the cafe. I think that is just such a strong element. And it, for us, like, we want to have, we're opening our second cafe in Dunwoody, which you're kind of familiar with this area. Do you know Dunwoody?
I don't. I'll have to ask Chris.
Yeah, ask Chris.
Because he grew up in Alpharetta and then moved to Cumming, and so he knows that area really well.
Right.
I'll ask him.
Yeah, he knows.
Dunwoody is more towards the city, as we like to call it here. But we want to have more than 2 cafes. We're not trying to like turn the whole world into wolves or anything, but like so in that pursuit of growing our business, we never want to lose like the soul of Valor. Like when you walk into our Alpharetta cafe, and then definitely like when we walked into Little Wolf, there's just this sense of like handmade, like whoever did this really cares about it, and they are a human or a couple or, in our case, a throuple. Not really. But
oh my gosh.
Like there's just that sense of soul. Like you walk into a place that's more corporate and you may have a good experience, but at the end of the day, you're like, there's not just this like, I don't know.
Can you smell that? Because I feel like that's just something that's always been on our radars is like, I feel like I used to have this very immature thought that like the more money you had, the better your space could be. But going to places and being like, this cost millions of dollars, but I do not want to be here right now.
You don't like connect with the brand really.
Right. But versus like going to a place that was so bootstrapped, but you're like, I love this place. I'm in love with this place. Like I'm going to live here.
Yeah.
How does that hit you?
I know what you're saying of like, where it's like, oh, this feels so polished, but it's like a little too polished. And there's like no personality behind it. And you're like, oh, this is actually just like kind of feels a little bit like produced to like net money or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I asked a question, but we hadn't answered the previous question, and it was are there any coffees from other roasters you've had that you love lately?
So we used to have like subscriptions to, I don't remember which one it was, but it was like you would get a different coffee roaster every month. And was it Barista Hustle? I don't know. It was a long time ago. And we loved doing it, but the problem was we don't drink coffee at home. And so we were just throwing out so much, or not throwing out, but like drinking coffee like a year later. And we don't drink nearly as much coffee as I think people assume that we do. I don't know if it's the same for you guys.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Ross drinks a good bit of coffee. Or would you say you're backing off these days?
Whenever I'm at home, I make a pot of coffee for me and my wife, and we drink. I drink a cup of it.
And then love it?
And I love it. And then when I'm here, we make coffee, and then I usually have like 2 of these, which, listeners, I'm holding up a yellow Fire King 10-ounce, 9-ounce mug. So I drink like 18 ounces at most.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess that's probably, we probably drink like 8 ounces. Chris probably drinks like 6 ounces. I at home don't make it. So, so I think he will order coffee if he sees something that Chris will order. If you like see someone has the same coffee, it's like sometimes we'll do coffee swaps with the roasters, or we will or if he says something interesting online where he's like, oh, this sounds really weird, I'd love to try this. I think we actually end up drinking more coffee when we travel, and we were just in Vancouver, and we went to some shops there, and there was a lot of great coffee there. And I think I'm trying to remember
49th Parallel.
We did we did have their coffee, but it was Nemesis actually I'm thinking of.
That's a scary name.
I'm scared.
We went a couple times, and they have really beautiful shops and amazing pastries. So their coffee was really good, and they had a good felt like a good coffee program of like they still care about the coffee and all of that. So that was really delicious. But there's so many good roasters out there, and we had your coffee, I guess, a year ago now, and that was delicious. Was it a year ago?
It was, we're coming up on it. I'd say it was 11 months ago, 10 and a half months ago.
Yeah, I think probably a better question for Chris, because he'll make a lot of pour overs here in the morning of coffee that he orders. But it's not for lack of we definitely don't want to stay in our bubble of only caring about what we're doing, and what we're doing is all that matters. So especially for him, he likes to try what other people are doing. And I think it's just we used to also regularly cup, and we would get other people's coffee, putting them on the cupping table. And I think that was really fun and a great way to keep trying other people's coffee. But it's just been kind of a weird, really busy year. And I think we just kind of, for me, I've gotten a little bit out of touch of ordering and looking at other people's coffee, because especially since there's nothing local, it's not like you're going to go run someone else's shop and be like, oh, I'll grab a bag.
Is there a Whole Foods in Ipswich?
No, there's a Whole Foods in like 30 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Respect.
Yeah,
Do you guys mind if I lightning round some questions to Melissa?
Go for it.
Do you mind if I lightning round some questions to you?
Sure.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Answer in 4 words or less.
No.
Just kidding.
How is your Synesso?
Great.
Oh, great. Cappuccino. Would you rather have a cappuccino or a pastry right now? You can't have both.
Gold content.
That's really mean.
I'm sorry. We're on a
What is
budget.
top choice? Pastry.
Yeah, I knew it. Would
Same.
you-
Carbs forever.
clam roll or lobster roll?
Lobster.
Okay.
If you had to pick a place to get your lobster roll from, where would it be?
Bob Lobster, but only because they do warm rolls and I don't like cold lobster rolls and it's hard to find a warm lobster roll.
Respect.
Respect.
I have one. Have you ever been to Ticonderoga Club in Atlanta?
No.
It is based off of the part of the world you live in. And it also happens to be my favorite restaurant in the world.
Wow.
And they have really great natural wine. And they have really great cocktails. And
It's awesome.
it's awesome.
You would love it, Melissa.
You would love it.
Melissa, you would love it.
I really keep trying to convince Chris to go back and I'm like, we should go visit Atlanta. And he's like, no.
Yeah, we remember that conversation from our last time
I
talking.
think it's a humidity. It's really
Hey, it's feeling pretty good down south right now. We woke up 55 degrees. We're only getting up to 79 today. It's crisp.
Oh.
Yeah,
And
not much
crisp
humidity.
sounds like crisp. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Hearing that Chris didn't really like Atlanta, kind of stung a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
I think it's just going to high school. I think something about that scarred him.
Yeah.
I totally get that. Natural wine. You said you're into wine. It sounds like you were probably into wine before all the hipsters started talking about natural wine. What's your relationship with the concept of natural wine? And have you ever considered selling wine at your coffee shop like other coffee shops do? Not because they do it, just because you like
Yes,
wine.
Yeah. So yes, actually, before we ever opened a coffee shop, we'd actually talked about a wine bar before this. And actually we kind of designed the new space to be a wine bar as well.
Busted.
So that it's not like a immediate thing. It's kind of like we always wanted to get settled and figure out what we wanted it to be. So yes, so we have thought about it, but kind of, again, not really because someone else does it. It's just kind of always been, Chris has been collecting wine for a long time and definitely a passion of his. So that was kind of where it ever stemmed from. I like natural wine. Some of it's a little too funky for me, a little too, what's the word I'm thinking of? Weird, I guess. There's a specific word I just can't think of, but some of it's a little too weird for me, but I do like it a lot. I like all wine. I'm not opposed to non-natural.
Could you explain the difference between wine and natural wine for the listeners? Not for me.
Totally not for you.
Not for me.
Probably not well. I
Chris,
am not the main
can
wine
Chris hear
buyer
me?
in our house,
Chris!
and I feel like I'm going to offend someone. I think it's just how they are, the process of making it, and whether they're doing it with added sulfates or whether they're doing it in the old world style of not adding sulfates to, and which makes it considered natural.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Can I just say something about that real quick?
No. Let's move on.
Sometimes I feel like it is just synonymous with the term specialty coffee, something that means everything and nothing at the same time. Because I've talked to wine people about natural wine, and I'm like, what are the parameters? And they're like, there's not really parameters. You just know. And I'm like, okay. But then think about specialty coffee. I know there's probably it has to be above a 80 on the Q grade scale. I'm like,
But that's BS.
But that's BS.
Yeah.
And it's not like a certification thing. It's not like end temp or a DTR thing. It's just like you just know. And that's how I feel about natural wine. I'm like, there's no rules. Because I definitely see natural wines that are like, we've added sulfites. And I'm like, but I thought that was natural wine.
But the label looks cool.
But then, like, is it just
if the label's cool or not?
Yeah, I think that might be it. So if a coffee bag is cool, it's specialty coffee. And if a wine bottle is cool, it's natural wine.
I think that's kind of what you said. I'm kind of scared about the parameters of it. And that's why it's like, I don't know what everyone, like, that's my thought process on what you would consider natural, but I don't know if that's an actual correct.
Well, I'd be in the same exact position. That's why I asked. And I would be in the same position if someone asked me, what's specialty coffee? I'd be like, oh.
Have you ever seen a white cafe with cactuses in it?
It's lighter coffee. Wood. The people, they're not happy.
Teeny beanies everywhere.
Teeny beanies as far as the eye can see.
Hey, guys, I love teeny beanies. All right.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's almost teeny beanie season.
It's coming around. And we should all wear a teeny beanie next podcast.
Perfect.
Melissa, do you got anything for us before we close? I just want to say, first off, thank you for your time.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't want it to end. It's been so fun. I'm sure you guys are trying to run away. Like, please let it end.
We're trying to wrap for sure. We're so busy. Like, we have a huge sales to close today.
Yeah.
So, like,
talking with Google, like Fiserv.
You heard of Fiserv?
Yeah. No, we don't do anything.
I don't know. I guess what do you like about doing specialty coffee? What do you think are the benefits of owning a business? And what do you think are the biggest negatives or challenges?
Wow.
It's very simple, but I really enjoy being able to come to work every day and drink fancy coffee. Like it actually is. Maybe it's on the top of my mind because it's like at the beginning of my day, I get to have like a really nice coffee. Whereas normally I'd have to like go pay for it, but I probably wouldn't do that. Like I probably wouldn't drink coffee or like, I don't know, but that's just like a simple pleasure that
you just have access to a luxury item.
Yeah.
It's like working at a Ferrari dealership.
Exactly.
It's so much like that in every way.
Do you go get coffee when you're not at work? Like, do you go to other shops?
No.
This dude was at Starbucks yesterday.
That is true.
This bro was at Starbucks
I live in a rural area, and my Wi-Fi was out. I was trying to work from home, and so I went to my local Starbucks and worked.
What'd you get?
What'd you get?
I got a cup of coffee, light roast, and I drank 3 sips.
I have never drank drip coffee from there. If I go to Starbucks once a year, I either get a pink drink, strawberry and cream frappuccino, or hot chocolate.
How's the hot chocolate?
Actually amazing. That was, as a kid, I used to go with my dad all the time. And it is my favorite hot chocolate. It is just like,
wow. You going whip or no whip on that?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's really good.
If I'm living my best life, it's whipped cream. Gotta add whip.
Yeah.
But if you feel like you don't deserve it that day, you're like, Melissa, no.
Exactly.
I've heard you really like vanilla in your hot chocolates too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I've read it on that article about your company. Jeez.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I did some digging before this. That's how I knew about the Northeastern. I was going to point out that my last name's Rivers and your dog's name is River, but I couldn't really tie that in well. So I'm just referencing it now so everybody knows. And
I guess no one has a Felix kind of relation, because then that would really tie it all together.
No.
There was a restaurant called the El Felix that we all liked to go to. But
my wife thought about naming a boy that we never had Felix. We didn't lose the boy or something. I just mean we had a girl instead. Everybody calm down. And I was like, if we have a boy, maybe.
Means happy.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it is.
Especially for a squirrel-like dog.
Yeah. To answer your question from my end, I just really like, it's easy when you're in the day-to-day to not step back and realize how blessed you are to have your own thing. that you get to, or to really work for a company that you love, because there's so many instances where things are happening that, you know, might frustrate you or stress you out. But then whenever it's just, you know, the three of us in a meeting talking about designing our cafe, I'm like, wow, I have like the best job in the whole world. So to be able to do things that might be my strengths that will also help my company grow and make money, it's really cool.
Yeah. It's lovely.
And specifically with specialty coffee, it being in this industry, I think in ways we stumbled into this because we, more than anything, just care about making people happy. So to get to kind of push back on a narrative of pretentiousness is really cool. It's been fun.
I definitely agree. That's huge for us too. I agree on that.
Yeah.
What about you, Goofin?
I don't want to answer.
Dang, you're salty today, man.
I'm just joking, dude. I'd love to answer. You mentioned it. I can't remember exactly what you said. I'll start with one of the hardest things. Having a company that is reliant on people and like personality was really hard for me to digest for like the first probably 2 years of having a coffee shop, because we're in a industry that has so many pros, but one of the difficulties is that it's hard to move up in a small business, like in a small coffee business. And so you can only have employee retention for so long. You can have high employee retention, but eventually people are going to leave. And so I struggled with a lot of like fear and like control issues, watching really talented people that I wanted to grow with us move on because we were limiting their growth due to our lack of growth. And that was hard. But now that we're growing in some like tangible steps, there's a lot more hope there of like building a team around us three and like starting to diversify leadership and like get more heads beyond us that can contribute to the vision and like well-being of this company. It gets me super excited. And I love working in a team. So doing a thing, like I'm in the cafe most of the time, and just my job to like be a part of a team and like help coach and lead a team is just an amazing opportunity. And I love when we like win and lose together and just go through the ups and downs of a like insane day at a cafe. And one of the best things about it too is like there's all these really cool things about coffee, but it's nice when crud is really hitting the fan at work and you can just be like, I'm just making coffee for people, you know, like I'm not doing brain surgery. I'm not like, I don't know, the president. And so like the quote unquote, like worst case scenarios when things are tough, it's just like, we might just not serve coffee for an hour or we'll close early. And I'm like, it's going to be okay. So we're kind of like in a really cool growing industry, but it's also at the same hand, like there's some lightheartedness to some of the harder seasons too. So I love
good
it.
Perspective.
Thanks, Melissa.
I just like the look on people's face when I get to tell them I own my own company.
That's awesome.
That's really
Yeah,
what I
when
do.
You really put it back on yourself.
when you tell them that you're the sole owner
Right.
of like, your coffee company.
Yep.
I just love the respect it garners me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do it for the respect, for the
fame,
the fame.
notoriety.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know if you've had the same situation, but I feel like I get the most like interest out of doctors because every time it's like, oh, well, what do you want to do for work? And it's like, yeah, I own a coffee shop. Because if you start with roastery, they don't understand what that is. They're like, you're grinding your own coffee?
Yes, I know. Same.
Yeah, we grind it in house every day.
Yep. And they're like, that's a big grinder back there. And
Yes.
so every time it's like a doctor's office, they're the ones who are like, well, you keep us going. Like, that is amazing. It's always the doctors that are like most intrigued.
Oh.
Huh. You see that?
We do have a lot of healthcare professionals in the space, and they are very appreciative. So I'll back that up.
Yeah, that's always funny. When people ask me what I do, I always say, I own a coffee business. And I need to stop saying that because they're always like, oh, so like
You grow
a
it?
coffee shop? And I'm like, yes.
I'm
and
gonna
a
steal
roastery.
And a podcast.
Yeah, I'm a podcaster. That's what I say.
I'm a YouTuber.
I'm an award-winning content creator.
Content
You should
creator.
say influencer. I think
Yeah,
that's a little bit
perfect.
more
I'm
accurate.
a coffee influencer.
Yeah, I bet you don't know, but I have 600 followers on Instagram.
You know, I like to think we're all influencing someone.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, but who.
Right.
Melissa, my last question is, are you a Patriots fan or are you more of a Tom Brady fan and now you're like a Buccaneers fan?
I don't really watch football.
What?
I know.
But just hypothetically, you know.
So Patriots because it's like local, but my dad's a big Tom Brady fan. He lives in Florida, so he was really excited about that. But don't
big
really.
win.
I'm a
win
big
for Pops.
Super Bowl fan. I love wings. I love nachos.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
I
do the
love all
buffalo
food
dip?
associated.
The buffalo chicken dip?
Yeah, we've done that. I'm actually, it's fine, but I'm definitely more of a like wings nachos.
Do you
Like
bake them or fry
traditional.
them?
What?
Do you bake or fry your wings? Or do you do a dry rub or a sauce or both?
So Chris bakes them. He does like a brine and bakes them, and he does a really great job. But I have ever fried
Does a
them,
brine?
especially if it's boneless. And then we usually do half and half. We usually do a dry rub, and then when I am a buffalo sauce like connoisseur. Like my desert item would probably be buffalo sauce.
Wow.
I get that.
Wow.
I love buffalo sauce.
Love it.
Yeah. What
Well, hey,
brand?
Oh, I don't care. I don't really.
Just give it to me.
Yeah.
What about you?
Should I care?
You
Frank's?
should care. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's a classic.
Frank's.
It is the classic
Yeah.
of classics.
I
It
can't.
is the buffalo sauce.
I can't think of a better place to close than talking about wings with Melissa.
Yeah, well, and we'll have to get Chris's his dry rub baked wing recipe and put it in the show notes.
And
Of
his-
course.
Did you say he made a brine for the wings?
It was like
Brian. Never mind. My bad.
so he's done it a few different times and he does different things, but he always like baking sodas them beforehand to make because it dries them out and it makes it extra crispy.
Very
Dang.
nice.
Wow.
My mind equals blown.
Sometimes he smokes them, in which he does a different thing. So I don't know. I eat them.
You're a connoisseur of eating the
talent.
wings with the buffalo sauce.
Yep.
Are you using buffalo sauce on the dry rub because you love buffalo sauce so much?
Yes.
Busted.
I do think I like whenever we
You just got
get
exposed.
wings somewhere else. Like if we get like different sauces, like maybe we'll get an Asian sauce and a barbecue sauce. I also always have to ask for an extra side of buffalo sauce. So I can dip all of them into buffalo additionally.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, this episode was brought to you by Frank's Buffalo Sauce.
Frank's red. All right.
The
Well,
perfect sponsor.
perfect. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Melissa.
Melissa. Thank you, Melissa. Hey, is the fly here? Can we give a shout out to the fly? Is he on camera? Or she? I'm sorry.
It's definitely he. His name is Joe. I don't know where Joe went. He was bothering me, and I never killed him. So Joe's around here somewhere. I'll give Joe your best.
Well, we'll get a freeze frame of him and put him up as the
Yeah, just
thumbnail.
Blow
maybe.
it up to like 3 pixels.
Yeah,
It's a black
Perfect.
dot.
that sounds great. For all you listeners and watchers, follow Little Wolf on Instagram and buy their coffee because it's the best.
You'll be
It's
glad
really
you
good.
It's
did.
very good coffee.
Yeah.
Any coffees you've been really enjoying that you want to suggest if like some of our millions of listeners, you could be getting the kiss of death here, is all I'm saying. Are you familiar?
No, I'm not.
It's when a massive influencer pushes a small business to like you're about to get like 20,000 orders in for the coffee that you're about to say. So why don't you just go ahead and say it? And
Yeah.
it's been nice knowing you. That's all I'm gonna say.
I personally will always drink an Ethiopian. I'm kind of torn. I really like we have a Hamasha right now, and then also a Leyu, and I really like both.
Melissa, thank you again. You're awesome. It was a treat
Thanks.
to meet you 10 and a half months ago, and it's a treat to talk to you again on the computer.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
And congratulations on your shop opening. That's a huge win
Thanks.
for the Little Wolf community.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Thanks.
Well,
And
no, after you.
oh, I was gonna say, and to soon be all the little wolves around the world when I take over.
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
Perfect.
We
All right,
will
listeners,
await the
get
day.
ready.
Get your Ruffy shirts ready.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, y'all. We love you.
Love you.